I think we can get started. Thank you, Bruce, for joining us to tell us about the new energy stuff that's going on. Power, energy is all a big talking point for single family home, multifamily and single family. And me talking to Bruce, I mean, he has a great knowledge in it, and I kind of want to bring it out into this platform to see um, how we can help each other get this word out and get some multifamily properties and single family properties to save some money on energy. Right, Bruce?
Yeah,
All right. Just quick housekeeping. If you guys have any question, put it in Q&A or chat, and I will read it out to Bruce when he is kind of finished with his presentation. And we have some exciting events coming on for DREIA in the next couple weeks. Check the website, DREIA.com. We have a mixer coming next month. The deal room, we are scheduled for October, so just keep checking the website and you'll get your emails also. Um, all right, Bruce, I'm going to have you just take it on and go with it.
awesome. Thank you so much for you. So my name's Bruce Jacobs, and I am here to talk about power and energy, and just try to, I guess, help put some kind of organization to what's happening in the world, and try to, let people know about what the options are and what options are coming, and how you can make energy part of your strategy as a landlord, as a property owner, as someone who deals with real estate. So I think where I like to start with everybody is just kind of giving a big overview picture of what's happening in the energy markets, right? Like, I'm sure you've seen gas prices have spiked, and where there's the war in Iran, and all of that has a ripple effect to now, we're paying 4 or 5, $3, $4, $5 a gallon, depending on where you're looking for gas. And that, affects everything, obviously. But, I remember when I moved to Florida in 1997, I showed up here. Gas had been 99 cents forever, and I know that there's never going to be a time in my lifetime or my children's lifetime that gas is going to go back to 99 cents a gallon. It's just not how the world is working, and I feel like, so I was a lawyer in my past life. I was actually a foreclosure defense lawyer. I used to, that's how I found DREIA in the first place, was helping people that own properties after the crash that needed, a path, and I left the law a few years ago, and I met, I joined the world of solar power companies, and it really like shifted my whole view on everything. Because what I know is that, the utilities themselves, like, you can't get away from them. They're gangster, right? Like FPL, even if you don't draw a single, uh, you know, kilowatt of energy from FPL, you're still paying $30, right? And that is, if you are paying, if you are just their customer, one of the things that we could see from FPL is they, can ask for whatever rates they want, and they usually get them. And, energy used to not be a big deal, but it's becoming a bigger deal, not just for people that are paying the bills themselves, but even for tenants. And landlords are, have to find a way to compete with, other landlords. And power is one of those untapped markets, one of those places that people really never looked. But, I feel like what's happening in the world of power right now is it's really three things. One, it's an aging grid, right? That is 100 years old and has never been able to meet demand, and is going to continue to be worked on. And they're going to keep passing their costs through and making their profits. And that is certainly going to be a factor for rates going up, is the continued work they're going to have to do to harden the whole electrical system across the state. But electric vehicles, are way more popular now than they ever were, and that's more electricity that needs to get drawn from the grid. But the real, game changer is AI. And we're all hearing about it, but to hear it from someone who's in the energy markets and watching this, AI has become like imagine a straw, right? That you're sucking your energy out of the world from. And now you have 103 data centers in Florida alone. That straw just became huge, right? And they're sucking the same energy from the same resources that we all have. So what happens when you have a huge increase in demand and the supply is already, maxed out? Prices go up. That's just the law of surprise of supply and demand, right? So what we're seeing now has been, if you haven't been paying attention, right? TECO, Tampa's electric company, people are like writing to the legislator asking them to intervene because TECO's gone up 82% in the last 5 years, right? FPL just got the largest rate hike in U.S. history of any utility in the history of the U.S. before the war broke out and gas prices started to spike. So, what does that tell the seasoned investor? Well, these data centers are, they're using water, they're using power, and they're using land, right? The only thing that they use that you don't is computer chips, right? So when you are dealing with that kind of demand, right, you got to look around and go like, where is this going? Right. And let me ask, I don't know, Bijou, if you want to chime in here, please. I love to, make it a conversation, not just a lecture. But, to me, the price of power for your tenants, for your properties, like, has it become noticeable in the industry, like
Oh,
as much as I think it is?
definitely, definitely. And, I know it's kind of standardized at least in Florida on the increases, but uh, energy in a whole has increased, right? And the other thing is, I think people are not putting the need for power, the increased need for power because of all the electric cars and stuff, right?
So I think what you're seeing, makes sense, right? If you are a guy that cares about net operating income and you're trying to squeeze every nickel and dime you can, right? Having regular power means you're a regular landlord, right? And you're, at least from a power perspective, there's no advantage to going from one property to the other if you're all drawing power from FPL or Duke or whoever it is,
Hmm.
right? So the reality is, though, it's a monopoly. You cannot get away from your utility. When you buy a property, you don't get a choice to sign up for FPL or Duke or LTEC or any of these companies around the state because they all have a jurisdiction. And if you're in their jurisdiction, you're going to pay their bills, right? So, what has been the solution offered for the last few decades has been rooftop solar systems, right? And that was a whole industry that just went through a huge like change. For starters, it used to be that you got a 30% tax credit if you bought solar equipment because they were encouraging that behavior. That tax credit is gone, right? There's probably at least in the last take I saw was in the last couple of years, 100 plus Florida solar companies have gone under, right? And what does it mean? It means the model of traditional solar, right, where you have basically two options in the normal solar model. You will either write a check for your equipment, and I've seen as much as $1,000 to $1,300 per panel installed. Batteries could be, the ones that that are the best of the best that will power the whole house, or $35,000 to $40,000 a piece if you try to buy them on the market. And there's no guarantee that when you install the equipment and you pay your money or you put your lien on the house for 25 years, that the company that's responsible to make it work is going to be around. They got paid, they're done. And if they go out of business, you become a solar orphan, which is a problem. And you have to insure the equipment And, in 25 years, you own 25-year-old solar equipment when it's finally paid off. So that model, is one that I've watched. I personally I got pitched on solar when I was a lawyer. They came to my house, knocked on the door, did the whole spiel. And I was like, wait, you want me to put a lien on my house for a electric bill? Stop. Like, I'm a foreclosure defense lawyer. There's no way I'm touching that. Have a good day. Right. But there is an emerging market now, emerging industry that's being birthed as we speak. And it's solar power companies. Right. And it's there's more than one now. They offer different programs. They have different pros and cons. Some work on multifamily, some work on single family, some work on warehouses and commercial. It's an emerging market, right? Which didn't exist 5 years ago, but in 5 years, I think is going to be a significant part of the energy world. And I think that it's an opportunity for smart operators to take control of their power, right? Because what's happening is basically a new model where you're not buying the equipment, you're not becoming your own power company. These companies have a business model that's designed on kind of win-win-win, right? Like, they have investors who put the money in because private equity sees that there's a value to this business model, right? They wouldn't be funding this if they didn't think it was profitable. So the goal is to create a power company that invests in rooftop solar panels and battery backup systems, as opposed to power plants and oil and gas and transmission lines, right? And what does that mean for the average property owner is you have a choice now, right? There is an alternative. You don't ever leave FPL or Duke or any of them. By law, you have to be connected to them, but you don't have to take your power from them. You can get your power from the sun. And if you get your power from the sun, the way these companies are operating is basically like a subscription model, right? So you own the equipment. Sorry, you don't own the equipment. You don't pay for it. You're not putting a lien on the house. There's no long-term gotchas or anything like that. But what's going to happen is you sign up, right? You pay nothing out of pocket. The equipment gets installed at these companies. Will pay for it all. We'll own it. We'll maintain it. We'll repair it. We'll insure it. We'll even upgrade the panels if you're with them long enough. And you will just pay less for power. So how does that work? I mean, it's really just if these guys have figured out the macroeconomics of if you scale solar as an option for power, it's actually way less expensive to produce than these power plants and transmission lines. And it's also way more effective. And a lot of these offerings now include batteries. So imagine you have a portfolio of single family homes and you're competing against your neighbor, against your buddy in DREIA who's got the same portfolio in the same complex, but all of your properties have 40 kilowatt whole home battery backup systems that will power the house for as long as there's a blackout, right? These batteries are designed so that they'll run the AC, the refrigerator, the lights, everything works whenever there's a blackout. And when the battery drains the next morning, the sun recharges the battery and powers the house. So as long as the sun comes out the next day, you're good. And I always say, if sun doesn't come out, we got bigger problems. So, a lot of what I try to counsel people about, like what I call myself a solar power broker, right? Because I feel like in 5 years, everyone will have solar, but knowing how to navigate that market and being able to work with people who are not interested in just upselling you on the biggest, most expensive system that you could pay for with these promises of you make your money back in 10 years. Like, I would never recommend that. I don't want to be a part of that, but the industry that's evolving is one that's really designed to make it good for you as the landlord. If your tenants are paying the bill, that's something that a lot of people don't think about the tenant's electricity as anything other than their problem. Well, what if it became a revenue stream?
Correct. No, that's what interests me, Bruce, with what you have. I always say, taking a lien out to put a solar panel to save money for 25 years. It doesn't just the numbers didn't work for me.
For sure.
Now, with the solution that you have, I think it's very doable, especially for rental properties where, you can my thought process is that I would just increase the rent by a little and they don't have to pay power bill, right?
I mean, there's definitely, so I have different landlords that play it different ways, right?
Hmm.
Some of my landlords will, make it utilities included because now they have a fixed, they know exactly what they're going to pay. It is a 1.9% annual increase. So they know it's rate controlled. They're never going to have to worry about prices skyrocketing for power. And, for them, it's a tenant amenity, right? If your tenant is getting free utilities and the whole home battery backup system, that means they're probably going to stay longer, which means you'll have less turnover, which means you'll have less vacancy, which means you'll make more money, right?
Hmm.
One, vacancy can really do a lot of damage to, your NOI. But meanwhile, the other side of it is I have landlords that, treat it like a revenue stream, right? They charge a solar fee, and that fee becomes additional revenue. And depending on your portfolio, that revenue adds up significantly to your NOI, which can really have an impact on the value of your portfolio at a 6% cap rate. So, I think that people need to understand this is the simplest, least expensive optimization of your properties that is available in the market, right? You go with the company that's going to charge you less for power and give you batteries. You pay nothing out of pocket. You put no liens on your homes. You just have power for that costs less, and you have protection from blackouts and rate hikes. Like that's a win-win. That's what the industry is bringing to market, and that's what I do. I help people navigate that. I don't charge you for it. I just, I know the industry, and the people that I work with. Like we're some of the like every one of our founders had the largest solar company in Australia, sold everything to come to the States and get involved with what we're doing. Other guys have been in the solar industry for decades and really understand the model of what was and love the model of what we're doing now. Like, I like working with people who just want to see, us turning, more solar power in the world as opposed to, how can I take advantage of this customer and that customer and make the most money to put in my pocket?
Correct. And that's what makes sense, right? I mean, because to me, I see we do pre-foreclosure stuff too, and the properties that we don't have solution for is the ones with all these solar loans and window loans and roof loan, that usually kill the deal.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that you have a loan that a buyer has to accept payments on a 25-year lien
Yeah.
or the seller has to pay it off is what killed. That's more like, look, we're on 10,000 homes. We're doing this over 10 years. We were born to fix these problems, right? It would be so much with us. There's no problems. If you want to sell the house, sell the house. We remove the equipment if they don't want it, but 98% of the time they want it. Why? Because they want to pay less for power and they don't want to lose batteries, right? So it's a better business model going forward is what we're seeing, right? And what I try to do, let me share my screen if I can.
Yep.
So
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to let me find it again. Hold on, where is that? Here we go. So, what I tell people, first off, there is a QR code here that if you scan that, it'll bring you to a link. You can put in your information.
Switch your screen so it was bigger.
It's bigger. I can't. This is the only
Yeah.
big. Is it not? Is it not big enough?
Um,
Hmm.
Good. Do it again.
Hold on. Let me see if I can. Let me pull it up as a PDF. Maybe that'll be easier. PDFs. No, I'm not seeing it come up that way. Let me
You
try this.
try it again. Try it again. There you go. I think you got, yeah, there you go.
Okay. So, I mean, what I tell people is, you have opportunities here. This is the company that I started with almost 3 years ago. They were kind of the leaders in the whole movement, and they only want single family homes and 1 to 4 unit properties. So if you have other types of properties, you could still use this QR code and get it to me, and I will help. That's what I do. Is I try, kind of like a mortgage broker goes to all the different lenders and figure out what's the best product for you. That's what power brokers do. Solar power brokers like me. But I want to give you guys just a look at numbers so that you can kind of see what we're really talking about here, right? Because you're going to see, right, this is a deal that we had, right? And every month, each property, this was just running, normal, setting up every single property in the most efficient way and seeing what they were paying was about $3,000 a month. What they were going to pay to the utility after we got installed was about $390 a month, and they were going to pay us about $1,750 a month in subscriptions. This is 1.9% annual increases. That's it. But his electric bill went from 3,000 and change down to 2,100. It's about $900 worth of savings, right? And you look, some of these properties, the savings is 20, the connection fees are $54, $36. Why? Because not solar doesn't always give you all the power you need, but it's still a discount on what you would normally pay for the power we can produce for you. And those savings add up, right? It's usually about a third is what I see for most of the power that I deal with. But just look at what happens, right? This guy happens to be running short-term rentals, right? Same thing for co-living, assisted living, sober living. Anytime you're paying the electric bill on a portfolio, if I'm able to reduce your monthly payment by $900, that's increasing your monthly your annual NOI increase is $10,000 and change. Divide that by a 6% cap rate. This client increased the value of his portfolio by $180,000 month one, right? Year one, didn't have to spend a dime to do it. It's a smart play. And he's got all of these properties now that have what is the equivalent of, if you look at a 79 panel system, that's, probably close to $100,000 if you were to buy it yourself, plus the batteries. That's a huge investment that most people would never pencil. But it comes as part of the service. You're paying nothing up front. There's no liens. You're just seeing a savings that, can affect your bottom line. Now, one of the things that I'll show, let me just pull up my calculator. Let me stop this for a second. So one of the other things that I'd like to show people is the NOI calculator that we built. Hold on, let me see where it is. Here we go. Is it opening? Where's it opening? Nope, it's not working. So, what I try to do for people, here we go, is show them, like you can look at your portfolio, right? This is something that I share with people all the time. Here is a calculator that we use. This client has 25 properties. The average monthly bill is $300. That's what the tenants are paying today to the utility, right? If we come in and let's say it's a 40% savings, it could be more, it could be less. This is adjustable, whatever number we want to put in, right? And you can share that with the tenant. You can keep it for yourself, depending on how you want to do that, right? And then you put in your cap rate, whatever you think your property would be traded at. And this is the utility going up at 4%, which is twice what Terra's offering is 1.9%, right? But look at what happens, right? You are saving $3,000 across the portfolio, which becomes $36,000 worth of NOI lift if your tenants just pay you what they would have paid the utility. And that's a $600,000 valuation increase to the whole portfolio. right? And these numbers are adjustable, right? Let's say you have, 10 properties and they're really the bill is $500 on average, right? Now you look at their, even if you give the tenants, a 10% savings just because you want to be nice, right? You're coming into the same $360,000 with less properties because they're bigger bills. So what I tell people is, if you are involved in whatever kinds of projects, let me look at them. Let me help you find a path to power that is going to be cleaner, more efficient, more reliable, and is going to cost you less money with nothing out of pocket to get going. I think that's the future that you guys get to be a part of. And Viju, I can't tell you how appreciative I am that you gave me an opportunity to share this with your people because look, at the end of the day, it's a win. It's a win, 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 win. Having solar power, having batteries is going to help your bottom line. And if I'm able to put more revenue into your portfolio, I'm just going to increase the value.
Perfect. No, I'm a strong believer of alternative energy like solar, wind, and that is just, this is the only financial solution that I've seen that is kind of palatable, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Com
and
compared to what's out there.
I mean, let me also just say this, just to be fair. One of the biggest drawbacks of this industry is that they will not do every property, right? Like, uh, Terra has their eyesight is strictly on single family, like 1 to 4 units, but they really want just bigger single family homes. And there's all kinds of obstacles you got to get over: the HOA, the
Mhm.
utility, the permitting people, engineering, the roof. Like I've seen probably about 80% of my deals make it through the gauntlet and actually get installed. So there's no like, it's a process is another thing that I'll make sure everyone understands. Like if you do go through this, it's not going to be immediate gratification. You're not going to turn on your bill, you're not going to put solar on your house the next day because a lot of these companies are competing with utilities that want nothing more than to shut them down. So they do
Correct.
everything by the book and that takes time.
Yeah. Correct. And you guys will do all that, the process, right?
Yeah.
From
So what I think is when you call FPL to sign up, you sign up, and then they turn your power on. They already have built their infrastructure. These guys are building their infrastructure as they go. So it does take a little bit longer, but once you're signed up and you're installed, that's when you start making a monthly payment for power, and your monthly power bill drops, right? And there's nothing else. There's no when I think is really impressive about this industry now is it's like from the ashes of high pressure pushing people into long-term liens and not really giving them, the service that solar should provide. There's a new, solar power companies that are acting, they know they have to be at a higher standard because if you leave them, they're not locking you in because they know they're giving you a better opportunity and
right.
they have to perform and do it well. Otherwise, you leave them and then they lose money.
Correct. Correct. No, and that's the key. So, yep. Can you put up back your QR code? So, and
Sure.
we'll send this out to all the attendees, so you guys will have the recording. Also, you'll see contact information for Bruce in the email. So, all right.
Yeah. So here's the QR code. And just to, let everyone know, Bruce at goterraenergy.io is the email I'm using today, but we are rolling out this Power Brokers. I think it's going to change to Bruce at powerbrokers.energy. Because there's a path forward here, and there's a lot of ways to help people, and that's what we're going to do is be trusted advisors in that whole process.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Bruce. And I will, um, I think you kind of answered everything because it's one of these new uh, topic. It's going to take people some time to watch it over. And if you guys have any questions, shoot it to Bruce. You will get an email with his contact information. So, and give him a try. So,
Yeah. I mean,
right,
what I'll say is all I ask for is the electric bill, either
right.
your tenant's bill or your bill, whoever has got it. I need the bill for the property. And then I come back and I can show you numbers. I can walk you through how this works. But, at its basic, you control the power. You have a fixed price that you know exactly what it's going to be as the years go on. And you get batteries and protection from blackouts, and you pay nothing out of pocket. You just pay less for power and you have protection from rate hikes. Like that's win, win, win all around if you're in real estate and you want to use power as a way of differentiating yourself from all the other landlords out there.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank
All
you
right.
so much,
Thank you.
Viju. Appreciate you,
No
brother.
problem. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you guys for jumping on. 11 o'clock. So, all right. And look out for the email and look out for our events at DREIA.com. All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.
All right.
Good.
Second.